Hello and welcome to Crux Investor. Caught up with Paul Cronin today, CEO at Adriatic Metals. It's listed polymetallic projects in Bosnia and Serbia. They have put out a few announcements since we spoke in February. Some permits have come through. Exploration continues anon. We talked to them about the fundraising process that they're going to have to go through. So announcement in July-ish, he says, and we talk about sort of the level of money that they're going to need and the application thereof. We also talk about the Charitable Foundation. Really interesting conversation in its own right. But if you want our thoughts and opinions on the conversation, the company, you can go and find that at cruxinvestor.com. And if you want to see precisely what we talked about today, take a look in the description below. Mr. Paul Cronin, how are we?
Very well, Matthew. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Where are you?
Still in Bosnia.
Right.
Still in Bosnia.
Cracking
and loving it. Yeah. Busy over here at the moment.
Good. I wasn't sure what we were going to get. I kind of been seeing lots of cardboard cutouts of you. I'm not quite sure. I'm still not quite sure.
Yours hasn't arrived yet?
No.
Well, it's on its way.
Fantastic.
Yeah, no, I did a steak and stocks lunch in Sydney. Obviously, I can't go to Sydney because it's,
they don't like
penal
you.
colony again.
Oh, right.
Well, Australia's become a penal colony again. And so they decided that they'd get a cardboard cutout done of me that looks horrendous and is now in my mother's living room.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. We've had lots of requests. We just wondered if you'll be able to buy them on your website anytime soon.
I think we should. I think, T-shirts, cardboard cutouts, it's all the rage. We could probably cover off a lot of the CapEx.
I'd have thought so. Some of the G&A. Yeah, good. Absolutely. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. There's a lot of requests. So now we've confirmed that, we should probably talk about your company, I suspect.
Sure.
So, why not? Why don't you kick off? Give people need to say 1 minute overview, and we'll talk about what's been going on.
Oh, look, we're obviously pretty busy. We've commenced our 2021 exploration program here in Vares. We're continuing with the exploration program over at Raska. Both are going very well. We're obviously deep into engineering and DFS on the Vares project, which is coming along well, and we expect that to be finished in a matter of weeks. Project financing and continuing on the rollout of a lot of our ESG programs. So you would have seen today we announced the launch of the Adriatic Foundation. We've just done a vocational course at the local high school for mining. So it's a 4-year program for students. We're doing that with EBRD and a couple of other actually Bosnian businesses have offered to contribute to the cost of that. So that's great. And then we're working on our human development rollouts and whatnot, which is keeping us all pretty busy, quite frankly. All with the intent that we can, break ground late August. Is looking pretty likely at this stage.
I do want to talk about the mining bit. It's what we're here for, after all. It's what we're, shareholders are invested in. Okay, but talk to me about this charitable foundation component, because you've talked about this before. It seems to be getting bigger and bigger, and you seem very, very pleased with yourself about it. What's happening there?
Look, I am. And when we looked at how does the company get a social license, we looked at a number of the issues around the community needs, the way in which taxation goes from central government down into municipal government, where that tends to get spent, what are the priorities. And we recognised that there was a sort of a hole that needed to be filled. Vares, obviously an old mining town, unfortunately has a lot of sort of Yugoslav era environmental liabilities around the municipality. The government's never had the funding to rectify those. The EU has started to look at some of them. Other NGOs are starting to look at them. But we also recognise with old mining towns that had a population of 25,000 back in 1990, now have a population of 6,000. That demographic is skewed toward the elderly. And there isn't a lot of opportunity for the younger generation. So the foundation was set up on the basis that we're going to address 3 issues. One was legacy environmental issues. 2 was providing better healthcare facilities to that ageing population. And 3 was create opportunities and education opportunities for some of the young people here, not necessarily going to mining. I mean, the foundation is not there for the benefit of Adriatic. The foundation is purely there for the benefit of the community. Adriatic has provided an initial amount of funding. I've provided some shares, which I'm hoping causes a strong linkage between the company at the parent level and the community. And we've had a couple of expressions of interest from potential suppliers, people who provide services, other NGOs that would co-invest with us in projects. So we think this is a critical opportunity for the community to identify its own priorities and make investments in those. And the whole thing's been set up so it's completely watertight. There are applications that come in, funding decisions are made quarterly. The people who make those decisions are really good people from the local community who are really interested in seeing this community sort of re-emerge back to what it was 25, 30 years ago. So I am excited about it. I think it's a great initiative. It's something I've put a lot of work into. I'm very proud of. And it's something that I think, we will continue to monitor the success of and look potentially, to expand that concept in other jurisdictions where we operate, be it Serbia or any other jurisdictions in the future, because I think it's been hugely beneficial.
I like the idea that the local people make the decisions. So you said, it's like kind of like having a parent that said, here's some money, go do what you want with it, but then they sort of frown at you when you come back having bought something they disapprove of. So you're saying they've got free reign at this, do what they think is right for them. Is that right?
Yep,
wow.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
There's criteria that they've got to be followed, but that's exactly right.
So what sorts of things are you seeing, or what sorts of things are being discussed?
So we've seen requests for basic improvements at some of the local primary schools. They're things that the foundation potentially look at doing. We've seen requests from local communities to try and remove some water pollution issues in one part of the municipality, easily fixed. So there's little things like that. None of these are going to be big expenditure items. They're all going to be relatively small. The idea of loading up the foundation with some initial funding is that it can invest that funding and give itself, an allocation of funding every year in perpetuity, well past the completion of mining activities here. We want to really see this last forever.
Sweet. Okay. Nice. There you go. The ESG bit of this story. Well, do you look at it like that? Because you said, the company's put some money in, but you've also put some shares into the foundation, or made available shares to the foundation. What do you look at it like as some sort of ESG? We must do this. It gives us social license, etc., or has it become a little bit more than that?
I don't. I think the company has a responsibility to the community in terms of looking at its operations and how they would impact the community, and we've done that through the ESIA. I think the company has a responsibility to its shareholders to make sure there's strong financial control, strong corporate governance. We've done that. That is our ESG commitment, and we're taking our environmental studies in particular to a level well past what is required by local legislation. That is our ESG commitment. The framework around that in terms of some of the policies we have internally also benefit the community. So here's a really simple example. As part of our human resource packaging for new staff, and we're about to be recruiting 350 odd, we're offering private health insurance. You probably get it at work. Most people get some sort of private health insurance benefit. It doesn't cost very much money. It differentiates us from other employees, particularly in the mining industry here, and hopefully it will help us attract really good people. But in terms of the provision of those services, the mine needs a medical facility in town, right? We will encourage the private health insurance provider to create that facility, which then goes on to benefit the local community through additional healthcare facilities, which I guess in some ways supports the objectives of the foundation. But it's not something the foundation need to be involved in because there's a direct benefit to the company that also provides a direct benefit to the community. And that is ESG in practice. It's just about putting very simple policies in place that, where you, how do I describe it? You create a really good alignment of the company's operations and the community's aspirations.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I just wanted to talk about that. I always think those things are quite important, and the way the management team come at stuff like that. Sometimes, because it's like, the camera stops rolling and you can hear what's really going on there. People are doing things because they're obliged to do it. It's going to allow them to do something else, which perhaps is kind of less savory, and it's a kind of bartering system. But I know we've spoken about off camera, and you're really quite proud of what you're creating there, and the legacy as well, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Good lad. Okay, well, let's talk about what's been going on since February. So what has been going on? Lots of press releases, but you're at that really boring phase, aren't you?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
You're busy, but it's kind of, for people looking, it's kind of boring. You're working up to some sort of financing decision. So what have we got to be excited about?
Oh, look, on the project development phase, we're obviously finalising our ASA. We're finalising the DFS. We've got all the construction packages out. Quotes are coming through. Everything's been collated and checked, and meetings are occurring with potential suppliers constantly. That'll all come to fruition in the next several weeks. Probably the one thing that has surprised me is the number of your normal suppliers of major equipment that are stuck in places like Australia can't supply you. That's been a surprise to me. And that's a result of COVID. But in terms of, supplies around Europe, and West Asia, no problems. So that's all coming to a head. Obviously, in conjunction with that, we're working on the project financing. The project debt capacity, as I think I've said in the past, is pretty high. So we're working through all of the legal mechanisms there to complete due diligence, implement those financing packages, and provide the appropriate security for the lenders, all the while trying to minimise dilution as much as we possibly can. And I think I'm pretty confident that sometime in sort of end of July we'll be able to make some announcements around that.
Okay, well, that's where people are excited. We'll have some cause to get excited about, because that's a big moment for you guys. And you're going to see this thing through. Me, personally? Yeah. No, I'm going to go and work for the charity. I'll find someone who knows what they're doing. Well, that's why I was asking those questions. Sounds like you are. Or open up some cardboard cut-up shop. I've got a good team of people here who are very, very competent. That team is growing almost daily, who are more than capable of building a project like this and running it very, very successfully. For me, I obviously got a lot of history with the company, having founded it, but I'm also very passionate about what it's doing and what it can be, and I see my role as sort of moving on to more, strategy implementation, more so than, into the nuts and bolts of permitting documentation and whatnot. So yeah, I think the company's got a very bright future. Even outside of what we've got here in Vares, but in Vares, even whilst we're working on all this to commence construction in August, we're still exploring. We've just announced that we've got the exploration license over that new concession area, which we were awarded the concession, I think it was last October, and now have been through all of the steps to get a federal exploration license, which means we can now do ground disturbance. We can drill, we can trench, etc. We can construct adits. That's a huge area, something we've got a lot of targets that we want to get into. But what I said to the exploration team was, I want your spending priorities to be around Rupice. So we have flown some EM surveys
over about 4 or 5 weeks ago, that data has now been collated, and we've released that. And you can see we don't have to go very far from the main ore body to look for new targets. And we are drilling those targets right now.
Okay. The reason I'm asking that is because you founded this thing, you've built it up, 560 million market cap today. Share price has been steadily increasing. It's all good. But you're at that point with Vares, for instance, that you say you've got a good ops team. They could probably get this thing over the line. They'll ask you to sort of okay some of the costs around the financing, etc. But you've also got a record of M&A. Tethyan, for instance, that was nice. That's quite an exciting thing to do. The exploration targeting, or the building of a big company is exciting. The admin, not so much. So, what type of CEO are you in terms of, you say I'm a strategy guy? What does that actually mean? What are you doing?
Oh, look, at the end of the day, we have a corporate strategy over the next 10 years that we've discussed at a board level. Where do we want to be? What do we want to look like? What does that commodity mix look like? So there are a number of potential projects that we would like to acquire. But, Matt, if you want to be successful in Europe, you've got to have, Europe is populated everywhere. There's little villages everywhere where people live, and those people are well educated and they're affluent. And to convince them that, building a mine might be 10 k's away from where they live, you've got to be top of the game in terms of environmental and social. Absolutely top of the game. And that has really been our focus here, is let's do this really, really well. People like to call it ESG. I don't call it that. But we've focused on really thorough and detailed environmental analysis, a really good look at the local community, how it works, how it operates, what it needs, what it doesn't need, and how we would integrate in both that natural environment and into that community. And that is what I think is going to differentiate the way we do things here from some of our competitors. And why I think there's a number of opportunities in Europe that have, come across over the years in little companies that spur up and they do a little bit of exploration and they just peter off into death because they've never been able to really do that well and give governments and communities confidence that the people that are going to be operating that asset will do it well. And I think that's the opportunity that we've got here in Vares, is to demonstrate that. If we do that, we will be successful in Serbia. We've already seen the Serbian government clamp down on environmental concerns based on community concerns. This isn't a bad thing, it's a good thing. But what we've got to be able to do is give our local community confidence that we know what we're doing. And that's what I think we're doing really well here in Vares.
Yeah, okay. I like that thought, because we've covered companies in Spain, France, Germany, Poland, which perhaps have not been able to deliver that, and it's been the death knell for them. So I do see the importance of that, but I'm trying to get at the point is, are you still hungry? Are you looking to grow this thing? Or is it just get Vares into production and then that's a good enough job done?
We're absolutely looking to grow it, but we also know that we can't bite off more than we can chew. Right now, we've got a project that's about to go into construction. That takes a lot of work, a lot of focus. We won't be looking at doing anything until we start to see some cash flow coming out, or we have a much greater certainty on the quantum and timing of cash flow. Because if I'm going to execute on a growth strategy, I want to do that out of net profits. If there were opportunities that required us to leverage up, we'd look at that. Of course we would. But I think there are plenty of opportunities in Europe that wouldn't require us to leverage up, where I think we can be successful, where I think we can also diversify our commodity mix. And we're very heavy silver zinc. We'd love to see more copper. We'd love to see more gold in the portfolio.
Okay. Brilliant. Can I deal with a little bit of housekeeping? Certainly some questions which have been sent in. So, for instance, Tethyan, is that all done and dusted now? The Tethyan shareholders have now been converted over. That's all been cleaned up? Or is there still a little bit of work to do?
I understand there was an issue with one online broker in particular, who I won't mention, that has received the paper share certificates, Adriatic paper share certificates, but has lost them. And what I understand, there are about a dozen shareholders of Tethyan that are still waiting for their shares to be credited to their account. We have worked to resolve a lot of these issues, and we're working through them because this broker has not looked after their clients. And they can request new share certificates. The broker has to request them. The broker has to sign some indemnities to say that they're not actually holding both of them. And they have refused to do that. And we will continue pushing. And I think our IR team have now got a direct dialogue with all of those that are affected by this, and we will resolve it sooner or later.
Okay. So obviously we saw the press release this morning with regards to the new concession area exploration permits. Good. You've got cash in the bank. How quickly are you? Well, and you've talked about exploration drilling generically there, but what is the plan for the rest of this year on that front? Just new drilling of new targets.
Yeah, so our initial focus is Rupice Deeps and Rupice North. Both of those holes are progressing well, those initial holes. Both now at around the sort of 400-metre levels, liking what we're seeing there. We need to complete those holes, and particularly BR321 has got a target depth of 780 metres, so it takes a little time to drill that. BR2 we would have ended. It has hit its target depth, but we're going to keep drilling that for a little bit longer. So what I need to see is the results of those in full before I decide that I'm going to bring in more rigs onto areas in the new concession area like Brule, Droskovac and others. But they have been prioritised. We do have a fixed exploration budget for the year, and we're not going to blow that, not when we've got strong fiscal discipline in a year where we know we're going to be spending a lot of money. So we'll do what we can, but logically the pace to start looking is around main Rupice ore body. Geophysics have indicated that there's some areas there that are worthy of drill hole follow-up, and that is happening right now.
Okay. In the past with me, we've had this discussion about using market price for the metals, right? And obviously the markets are...
Is there another price?
Let's not go there again.
Well, I'm happy. If you want to sell me copper at 6,000, mate, I'll buy it all day.
Well, here's the question. The question is, as the metals prices are going up, right? It's been a great time for across the board, and you're a polymetallic. I know you're selling Vares as silver because it's good, but there's a polymetallic story there. If the markets fall away, because it's been a great time, it's been a nice run of it. The markets fall away, then that's going to have an impact on how you value your company, and you'll stand up and go, "That's absolutely fair and reasonable," won't you?
Yeah. It's funny. Some banks require you hedge, and some of them don't. But overwhelmingly, in all of the financial institutions that we spoke to around the project financing, they did not want us to hedge, even at reasonably buoyant commodity prices. I think we're seeing, a number of market disruptions. Some of them are legacy from historical underinvestment. Some of them are political, such as Peru. And some of them, will resolve themselves in a post-COVID era. But I don't think for the time being, we need to be too concerned about, a crash in commodity prices. I don't have a magic wand. I wish I did. All I can tell you is what is the market price today and what the forward curve looks like. That forward curve, sometimes goes out 3 months, sometimes it goes out a year. After that, it becomes pretty unreliable. I've always taken the view that we should use spot or something near spot that's slightly rounded. And I don't think my view on that has changed. Last time I put out the pre-feasibility study, you did criticise me for that. You were wrong.
No, don't think so.
Don't be wrong, because all of those commodity prices are much higher. Or maybe you were suggesting I should have used high prices, but I'm pretty sure at the time you were suggesting I should have used lower ones. But either way, the only price that I can defend is market prices, is spot prices, because consensus pricing was put together by an array of different people with different views. Some of them are total whack jobs that think gold's going to 30,000 an ounce.
So what about this barite component to your story? Have you taken a view of what you think all of your supply will do to the market in terms of the price?
Yeah. The interesting thing in all of the market work that we've been doing on barite at the moment, it's really fundamentally affected by two factors. One is, your shipping rates at the moment are around 5 times what they were in December 2019. Barite's a low margin product. Two is the barite pricing itself, due to the just complete disintegration of oil and gas exploration, is incredibly volatile, and we're seeing quite different pricing around the world. Now, we know that we can sell it nearby. That's good from a shipping perspective, but those prices aren't as good as what we'd like them to be. We know that we can sell it further afield, but the shipping costs would probably make it uneconomic. So there has been a lot of work being done on this. I think from the definitive feasibility perspective, barite didn't contribute a great deal economically. It actually increases your unit OPEX costs. And so what you'll probably find is on the DFS, we'll drop barite out of it for now, but we'll still keep the footprint there so that we can bring it in later.
Well, it's not really
it settles down.
Yeah, it's which is great. Which is the discussion that we had when with the scoping study that we analysed, which was trying to say you don't necessarily need it to make money. You just don't want it to cost money, right? So it dropping out of DFS is not an issue. What you don't want it to be is overburden and then piling it up on the side of the road. I think was our point. So we were right. You're saying we're right.
I think you. You may have been very fortunate in your guess on global shipping prices.
Is that 1-1? We'll go 1-1.
What I'm intending on doing is temporarily stockpiling waste to reprocess it into barite. Now, that may happen on the same day we start the rest of the flotation plant, or it might happen 6 months later. But I'm pretty certain that global shipping will normalise at the beginning of 2022. That view is shared by a number of other groups that we deal with in terms of commodity sales. But at the moment, from a study perspective, is barite going to make a positive contribution to margin? Probably not.
And it doesn't need to, so that's fine. Timing's everything. Like bad comedy. Okay, so with regards to July's the date that we're looking for in terms of you making some sort of announcement in terms of how this thing gets financed, and then how quickly does it move after that? What's the order of play?
Very quickly. So detailed engineering is largely underway. We still have got to prepare that DFS in a Bosnian format, submit it for review. So the Bosnian author of that document is already working on it. The stuff comes out of Zenko. They go and put it into the national format. There's a review company that has already commenced a review of those sections. And then it ultimately goes to the ministry for their review to confirm that everything that we've designed meets the mining code and the 83 pieces of legislation that fall into it. It's largely a legal process. It's largely procedural, but it's got to be done. So once that's complete, we will basically start construction. We will start the civil works on Rupice. We've got about 300,000 tonnes of earth. We've got to move there for the terracing on the surface infrastructure, and obviously the commencement of the declines. There are now 3 declines, 2 that are operational, one's purely a vent, and that's because we had some geotechnical issues at the location where we wanted to put the vent rise. So nothing that's particularly problematic there. But obviously, with winter conditions and in the mountains, you want to try and get a lot of this done, pronto, because I don't want to be doing civil works in January.
No, not at all, not at all. Hey, well, look, I'm Paul. Thanks for the catch up. It's interesting to see how you've been moving this thing forward. There is movement. I know I sort of joked it's a bit boring period, but in a way it kind of is, but it doesn't mean there's not a lot going on. I guess it'd be great to hear from you in July when you're starting to make some decisions about how this thing moves forward. So stay in touch, okay? Yeah,
well, if you're not on holiday for July, mate, I'd happily catch up with you.
It's just before I take the whole of August off, as you well know. I'll be on my boat. In fact, I'll be on a boat near you.
Really?
Really?
Oh, great.
Literally, you can pop over with a bottle of dodgy rosé if you'd like.
Yeah, some bags of flour and egg. That's all kind of
That's fine. You're an absolute charmer. Good to speak to you. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate. Cheers.